and full of terror and wonder, and harboured some of the greatest and worst moments of my life. I also saw that same longing in other people, the desire to explain that this experience transcended the normal experience of illness. I have spoken to virtual strangers about our shared experience of chronic illness and have ended up in the embrace that you can only share with someone who knows how it feels to live inside your skin. As people right across the invisible illness spectrum reflected the experience that I'd had with Crohn's disease, I began to understand that our stories were shared. Finding out that you're not alone can itself be transformative. What was also resounding and reflected by so many was just how isolating invisible illness is. When you can't see anyone else like you, it's easy to believe that you might be the only one. Illness is like a natural disaster. In that way, it is simple, because you have little choice but to accept it. The only choice left to you is how to respond, and disaster becomes an opportunity. It demands that you move into the present and deal with it immediately. It forces you to look directly into it and into yourself, and to begin to know yourself as it reveals you, bare, naked, and true. But the time comes when you must reckon with the damage. There is a moment when the eye of the storm has passed, and you creep out, blinking in the light, to assess just exactly what it has done. Though this book is primarily the story of my own illness, it also travels through the lives of many people who have shared their experiences with me. It is by travelling through all these memories and conversations, armed with my headlamp, that I've tried to tell the story of invisible chronic illness in all its colourful complexity. It also leans on the smart people who have spent careers thinking about what this means for us all. It's also vital to note that I come to this experience of illness and hospitals with the privilege of my whiteness. I acknowledge that although I have attempted, I have a vastly limited ability to truly express or understand the difference of experience and discrimination that First Nations people or people from diverse cultural backgrounds have within our health system. There is no one story of illness, but there are threads that wind their way around all of us. They reveal that, in many ways, our illnesses are more alike than perhaps we might have known. I'd almost finished writing this book when the world stopped, dead in its tracks. It felt like the stories that I'd read about the people of Pompeii, who, suddenly and seemingly out of nowhere, had their entire town destroyed by a volcano eruption. Like a diary open to an unfinished final entry, they would be discovered centuries later, fossilised in place, their lives extinguished so fast they barely had time to move. And so it was when the pandemic hit. Like the great W.H. Auden poem, Funeral Blues, it felt like the world, which had been in a relentless fervour for so long, had finally been put to sleep. The clock stopped. The streets were emptied. All humanity was forced to face its mortality and a deep, prolonged and gravely unsettling uncertainty. The novel coronavirus, or COVID-19, shouldn't have been unexpected, but it was. I remember speaking about it on my radio show, ABC Afternoons, when it first began. It was a question on our Friday afternoon quiz, a quirky bit of news that we didn't quite know what to make of. Which town in China had been hit by a virus? The answer was Wuhan, a town not many had heard of until a few weeks before, but it hadn't yet dawned on us what was to come. In Australia, what tricked us at the start was that serious news events, the really bad things, were always happening to other people over on the other side of the world, not to us. We have a convenient habit of othering these sorts of experiences to protect ourselves. We imagine that these horrible ordeals could only happen very far away. Even though the numbers were starting to sound frightening, we couldn't imagine that they could have anything to do with us. But soon, what had started as a third or fourth tier news story became a shocking headline with the word pandemic. I remember I was getting ready for work when I first heard that word, and I stopped mid-thought. Pandemic, I mused, and kept brushing my hair, because I'd never heard the word used in this way. But pandemic came to mean everything, a word so powerful that it shut us down. Slowly, the first signs of fear flashed across our cities. What surprised me most of all was how the fear could be a greater threat than the pandemic itself, that we could be so alert to our danger that we became a danger to ourselves. At the time, I was catapulted into the same spectrum of fear and uncertainty as nearly everyone around me. If we